The containment field hummed with a frequency that made Verk's teeth ache. Through the translucent barrier, he could see her. Elsa, they called her, though he doubted that was her real name. The Zenthari didn't use names the way humans did. Their identities were quantum signatures. Probability waves collapsed into linguistic approximations for the sake of diplomatic convenience. She stood perfectly still, her chromatic skin shifting through hues that human eyes weren't designed to process. Verk's neural implant struggled to translate the colors into something comprehensible, settling on a nauseating purple-green that pulsed with her respiratory cycle, if she even breathed. The xenobiology reports were still inconclusive. Subject exhibits temporal displacement, Dr. Reeves had explained during the briefing, her voice clinical and detached. By our linear measurements, she's 58 standard years old. You're 25. But the Zenthari experience time differently. To her subjective experience, she may be younger than you, or older, or both simultaneously. Verk had signed the contract anyway. Earth's survival depended on the Zenthari alliance, and the alliance demanded cultural exchange. Marriage, they called it, though the word carried different weight across species. The Zenthari collective had chosen Elsa. The United Earth government had chosen Verk. Neither had been given a choice. The containment field dissolved with a sound like shattering glass played in reverse. Elsa's eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle across what approximated a face, fixed on him with unsettling precision. "Verk Chen," she said, and her voice bypassed his ears entirely, manifesting directly in his auditory cortex. Primary designation, diplomatic liaison. Secondary function, genetic compatibility test subject. Tertiary purpose, unknown, pending data acquisition. "You can just call me Verk," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. His hand moved unconsciously to the small device clipped to his belt, a quantum communicator linked directly to Earth Command. One press, and an extraction team would retrieve him within 90 seconds. He'd been told to use it only in cases of immediate life-threatening danger. He wondered if existential dread counted. Elsa moved closer, her locomotion defying physics in subtle ways that made his implant throw error messages across his visual field. She didn't walk so much as reality rearranged itself to accommodate her desired position. "You fear me," Elsa observed, "not a question, a statement of quantifiable fact. Your cardiac rhythm has elevated 17%. Epinephrine levels suggest fight-or-flight response, yet you remain." "Duty," Verk said simply. For the first time, something like expression crossed Elsa's alien features. Her skin rippled, colors cascading in patterns that his implant tagged as amusement respect calculation. "Duty," she repeated, tasting the word. "The Zenthari understand duty. We have performed our obligations for 17,000 of your years. We have maintained the barrier. We have held back the Voidborn, and now we require compatibility." The barrier. Verk had seen the briefings, classified information shared only with those deemed essential. Beyond known space, something waited. The Voidborn entities that existed in the spaces between quantum states, things that unmade reality by their very presence. The Zenthari had held them at bay since before human civilization emerged from its cradle. But the barrier was failing. "The marriage," Verk began, then stopped. The word felt inadequate. What does it actually entail? Elsa's eyes began to glow, a soft bioluminescence that made the shadows in the chamber dance. "Integration," she said. "The Zenthari collective operates on quantum entanglement. Individual consciousness exists, but is linked to the greater whole. Your species operates on isolation. Separate minds, separate experiences. The marriage is an experiment. Can human individuality merge with Zenthari collective without losing itself? Can Zenthari collective experience human separation without fragmenting?" She reached out and Verk forced himself not to flinch. Her hand, if it could be called that, had 7 fingers, each one ending in what looked like crystalline fractals. They made contact with his face, and the universe inverted. Suddenly, Verk was everywhere. He felt the barrier, a construct of pure will and mathematics stretched across light years, holding back entities that existed in dimensions his mind couldn't process. He felt millions of Zinthari minds, each one a node in a network of consciousness that had endured millennia. He felt Elsa, not as an alien creature, but as a cascade of experiences and memories and purposes that stretched back through centuries. And he felt her loneliness. The Zinthari collective was vast, but it was also rigid. Every mind perfectly synchronized, every thought shared, every decision made by consensus. There was no room for deviation, for the unexpected, for the beautiful chaos that defined human existence. Elsa had volunteered for this mission not out of duty alone, but out of desperate curiosity. She wanted to know what it felt like to be singular, to be alone, to be herself in a way the collective never allowed. The connection broke and Verk gasped, his lungs remembering how to function. Elsa withdrew her hand, her colors muted now, subdued. "You understand now," she said quietly. "You're trapped," Verk whispered. "You've been trapped for your entire existence." "As are you," Elsa replied. "Trapped in isolation, unable to truly share experience, to merge consciousness, to be part of something greater than yourself. Your species reaches out, builds communication networks, social bonds, desperate attempts to bridge the gap between separate minds, but you can never truly connect." Verk laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "So we're both prisoners, just different kinds of prisons." "Perhaps," Elsa said, "or perhaps we are the key to each other's liberation." Over the following weeks they learned. Verk taught Elsa about human art, about the beauty of imperfection, about music that arose from individual expression rather than collective harmony. She struggled with it at first, her mind trained to find patterns and optimization. But slowly, she began to understand the appeal of chaos, of spontaneity, of jazz improvisation that defied algorithmic prediction. Elsa taught Verk about the Zinthari Gestalt, about the profound intimacy of shared consciousness, about mathematical concepts that human language couldn't express, but that could be experienced directly through their touch link. He learned to see reality as they did, not as fixed and linear, but as a probability field that collapsed into actuality through observation and will. The physical aspects of their marriage remained ambiguous. Zinthari reproduction operated on principles that made human sexuality seem quaint by comparison, but intimacy emerged nonetheless, not through biological imperatives, but through genuine connection. They learned to exist in the space between human individuality and Zinthari collective, creating something new. And then the barrier fractured. The alert came through Verk's neural implant at 3:47 hours. Elsa felt it simultaneously through her connection to the collective. A void-born entity had breached the defenses, was manifesting in real space just beyond the solar system. "We have to go," Elsa said, her colors flashing urgent crimson. "The collective requires all available nodes. The barrier must be reinforced." "I'm coming with you," Verk said immediately. "You cannot survive the quantum spaces where we must operate. Your consciousness is not designed for." "Then redesign it," Verk interrupted. "We're married, aren't we? You said integration, you said compatibility, prove it." Elsa's three eyes studied him for a long moment. Then her colors shifted to something his implant couldn't translate at all. "This will change you permanently," she warned. "You will never be fully human again." "And you'll never be fully Zinthari," Verk replied. "That was always the point, wasn't it?" The integration took 17 seconds and an eternity. Verk felt his consciousness expand, stretching to encompass the quantum network of the Zinthari collective. But instead of losing himself, he brought something new to it: human adaptability, human creativity, human capacity for irrational hope in impossible situations. Together, merged but still distinct, they joined the defense of the barrier. The void-born entity was massive, a tear in reality itself, but the collective responded with mathematical precision. And now, enhanced by human unpredictability, they didn't just calculate the optimal defense, they improvised. Verk suggested patterns that violated Zenthari orthodoxy. Elsa implemented them with quantum precision. The collective adapted, incorporating these new strategies into their defense. The Voidborn entity, which had evolved to counter Zenthari predictability, found itself facing something it couldn't comprehend. Chaos married to order. Individuality merged with collective, human and Zenthari working as one. The entity retreated back into the spaces between spaces. Later, much later, Verk and Elsa stood together in the observation deck, watching Earth turn below them. His consciousness now existed partially in quantum space. Hers now experienced linear time with human subjectivity. They were no longer quite what they had been. "What happens now?" Verk asked. Elsa's hand found his. She had learned to approximate human gestures of affection. "Now we continue the experiment," she said. "More marriages, more integration. Human creativity combined with Zenthari stability. It may be enough to finally end the war with the Voidborn. Or it might create something entirely new," Verk added. "Yes," Elsa agreed, her colors shifting through what he now recognized as joy. "That is what I find most fascinating about you humans. You embrace uncertainty. You see possibility where we see only probability." Verk smiled, squeezing her crystalline fingers gently. 33 years older by human reckoning, 17,000 years younger by Zenthari experience, or perhaps the same age after all, it no longer mattered. They had found something neither species expected, not just compatibility, but completion. The first marriage between human and Zenthari, the beginning of something unprecedented. No one had expected it would save both their species. But then again, no one had expected them to fall in love either.